Imagine Venice 1420, the air thick with salt and greed. You're elbowing through a bazaar where merchants shout over squawking gulls and the clink of ducats. A crowd gathers around a stall draped in crimson velvet where a swarthy trader all grins and gold rings holds up a spiraled tusk that catches the sun like a shard of moonlight. A unicorn's horn, he bellows, voice slick as oil. Plucked from the beast's brow, blessed by saints guaranteed to sniff out poison, faster than a hound scents a hare. The tusk narwhal, though he'd sooner die than admit it, gleams cold, its grooves whispering secrets. You squint, half expecting it to hum with magic, but it's just bone hauled from Arctic seas by some frostbitten sailor. The merchant's spiel is a medieval infomercial, and the nobles lap it up. A lady in silk, her face powdered to ghostly pallor, gasps as he claims the horn cures, fevers banishes curses and makes barren wombs fruitful. One touch he purrs and death's own venom fizzles like spit on a fire. He dips the tip into a goblet of wine and the crowd ooze as bubbles rise, rigged of course with a pinch of ground coral. You smell the scam, but who dare call it? This is the era of relics where a saint's toe buys salvation and a king's ransom. The merchant's eyes glint counting the coins already. He spins tales of unicorns galloping through Eden, their horns piercing demons. Pure nonsense, but it sells. You notice the crowds mix a bishop fingering his rosary, a knight with a scarred cheek, a merchant's wife clutching her purse. They're hooked not just by the horn, but by what it promises power over fate. In a world of plague and betrayal, a magic tusk is a lifeline. The trader leans in, voice low. King Henry himself owns one. Shall you be less? The name-dropping lands like a dart. A noble steps forward, offering a chest of gold enough to buy a village. The tusk changes hands wrapped in silk while the merchant's grin widens. You wonder how many narwhals died for this, can their tusks polished into royal pipe dreams. But there's a shiver in the air. A crone at the crowd's edge mutters of curses, how a true horn burns the unworthy. Her words slither through the throng and a few step back, crossing themselves. The merchant laughs it off, but his eyes dart. Superstition's double-edged blade sells the horn but plants dread. You catch a whiff of the harbour's rot mingled with incense from a nearby church. This is the Middle Ages, where faith and fear dance a grim waltz. The horn's a lie, but its pull is real, a glittering trap for the desperate. As the crowd disperses, you hear the merchant whisper to his apprentice, "Another ship's due tomorrow. More horns." You shake your head, half amused, half sickened. This is humanity chasing myths one scam at a time. Like Cher, tell us your creepiest medieval con, what's your unicorn horn? Picture a feast hall in 1485, a fortress of stone and suspicion. You're a courtier sweating in velvet as torches cast shadows like clawing hands. The king, hunched on his throne, grips a unicorn horn narwhal tusk, but he'd stake his crown. It's divine. Its carved spirals gleam under candlelight, heavy as his paranoia. The air's thick with roast pheasant and fear. Every clink of a goblet could be a traitor's signal. He's heard of poisons slipped into wine by smiling assassins. The horn's his shield, his royal security blanket bought for a fortune that could have fed a city. You watch him dip it into his cup, waiting for the fizz that proves the wine safe. Nothing. He drinks, but his eyes never rest. This is the life of a medieval king, where trust is rarer than gold. The horn's legend neutralizing venom warding off death keeps him tethered to sanity. Courtiers whisper their silk rustling like snakes. It saved the Duke of Milan, one says. Fizzed black when his cup was laced. Lies, probably, but the king clings to them. You notice the horn's weight, how it drags his hand, etched with vines and crosses, by some artisan who knew its buyer's desperation. The hall buzzes with laughter, but it's brittle masking dread. A jester tumbles and the king flinches, hand tightening on the tusk. You wonder if he sleeps with it a cold bedfellow against nightmares of daggers. The irony's rich. This unicorn relic, peddled by a grinning merchant, is just a whale's tooth hauled from icy waters. You'd laugh, but one wrong glance could land you in the dungeon. The king's advisors, fat with bribes, swear by the horn's powers. One claims it cured his gout. Another says it glowed during prayer. You smell their hustle as rank as the rushes underfoot strewn with bones and grease. The king's no fool, but fear makes fools of all. He orders the horn tested nightly, a ritual as grim as mass. Servants pour wine, dip the tusk and pray for bubbles. Last week a cup fizzed tainted by accident or a merchant's trick. A taster died frothing, and the king's faith in his horn grew fiercer. Yet whispers creep like damp through stone. Peasants outside the castle gates speak of curses, how a true horn sears the sinful. A maid caught staring at the tusk crossed herself and fled. You feel the halls chill despite the fire's roar. The king's paranoia is a contagion infecting all. You sip your wine wondering if it's laced if the horns are lie. It is of course a medieval scam as bold as a viral ad campaign, but its power lies in belief, not truth. The king strokes the tusk eyes darting to a laughing lord. Is he loyal? Is anyone? The feast drags on a glittering cage of dread. You think of the merchant who sold this tusk counting coins in some sunlit port free of this madness. Humanity's a sucker for shiny lies then and now. Drop a comment. What's the strangest thing you've believed in? Step into a muddy village 1450 where dusk cloaks the thatched roofs in gloom. You're trudging through ankle-deep slop, the air sour with dung and wood smoke. A crowd huddles near the church, their faces lit by flickering torches, eyes wide with dread. They're whispering of a unicorn horn locked in the chapel's reliquary, a spiralled tusked narwhal bone passed off as divine, donated by a lord to buy God's favour. The villagers don't know it's a scam, a whale's tooth from some frozen sea. To them it's magic glowing with menace. You hear their tails touch it, and the unicorn's curse burns your soul to ash. The church looms, its stones damp and moss-slick. Inside, the horn rests on a velvet cushion catching candlelight like a blade. You feel the crowd's fear thick as the fog rolling in. An old man bent like a gnarled oak swears he saw the horn hum when a thief tried to steal it. The beast spirit guards it, he rasps, crossing himself. A woman, her hands chapped from washing, nods, claiming her cousin touched a horn in York and went mad babbling of hoofbeats in his dreams. You want to scoff superstitions a peasant's shackle, but the air's heavy and the shadows seem to shift. This is the Middle Ages, where every creak's a demon, every relic a gamble with fate. Kids tug at their mothers' skirts, whispering of unicorns galloping through misty woods, their horns piercing sinners. The tales grow wilder, one horn turned a river to blood, another blinded a priest who doubted its power. You catch the irony, a fake relic peddled by some slick merchant, now a villager's obsession. It's a medieval urban legend as viral as a cursed TikTok clip, yet the fear's real, binding them tighter than any lord's chain. A girl barely 10 clutches a wooden cross asking if the horn knows her sins. You feel a chill, not from the damp, but from their belief fierce enough to conjure ghosts. The priest, a gaunt man with greedy eyes, fuels the panic. He claims the horn's a test, only the pure can approach it. Last week a boy who sneaked in to touch it fell ill, coughing blood by dawn. Ergot in the bread, you'd wager, but the village calls it the unicorn's wrath. You smell their terror mingled with the church's incense and mildew. The horn's a lie, but its curse is truth to them, a shadow over their lives. As you turn away, a crone grabs your arm, her breath sour. Don't mock it, she hisses. The beast sees. You shake her off, but her words linger like the torchlight's flicker on the horn's cold spiral. Humanity's built on stories, and this one's a trap snaring hearts in dread. Drop a comment. What's the creepiest tale you've heard that felt too real? You're in a dim London shop, 1520, where the air's clammy with herbs and deceit. The apothecary, a wiry man with ink-stained fingers, hunches over a mortar, grinding unicorn horn for a noble's cure. The tusked narwhal, not that he'd tell, yields a gritty dust, pale as bone, reeking faintly of sea rot. He swears it'll mend the lord's fever, maybe even his limp. You watch half gagging as he mixes the powder with honey, forming a paste thick as grave dirt. This is medieval medicine, a scam dressed in hope sold for a purse of silver. The shop's a cave of oddities, dried bats. Mandrake roots a jar of something that might be eyes. Shelves groan under vials of cures, each pricier than a peasant's yearly wage. The apothecary's no fool. He knows the horn's a fraud bought cheap from a dockside trader. But his patter's smooth, honed by years of fleecing the desperate. This, he says, holding up the paste, banishes death itself. The noble servant, sweating in livery, nods too scared to question. You smell the hustle sharp as the rosemary hung to mask the shop's damp. It's a medieval pyramid scheme with unicorn dust as the pitch. He claims the horn's shavings cure plague, gout, even a broken heart. Last month he sold a pinch to a duchess, swearing it'd make her fertile. She's still barren, but he's richer. You notice the pestles scrape rhythmic as a liar's heartbeat grinding bone into profit. The noble's fever's probably from bad water, but try telling him that. In this era, magic trumps sense, and a whale's tooth is a miracle if the price is right. The apothecary winks, offering you a speck for vigour. You decline, catching a whiff of the paste briny like a crypt's breath. It's a grim joke this cure as effective as a prayer to a storm. Yet there's a shadow here beyond the scam. The servant whispers of a curse how a rival apothecary who sold fake horn went blind. Superstition's a leech clinging even to cynics. The shop's candles flicker, casting the tusk's shadow like a spear. You wonder how many died chasing this lie, their faith in unicorns stronger than their will to live. The apothecary seals the paste in a clay jar, muttering a fake blessing. His eyes dart as if the horn might judge him. You step back, the floorboards creaking, and feel the weight of this world where truth's buried under greed and fear. Humanity's a sucker for shiny fixes then and now. Like, share what's the weirdest cure you've come across. You're standing in a cathedral, 1475, its stone vaults soaring like the ribs of some ancient beast. The air's heavy with incense and murmured prayers, candles flickering like stars in a crypt. Pilgrims shuffle forward, their boots scuffing mosaics worn by centuries of hope. At the altar on a cushion of scarlet silk lies a unicorn horn narwhal tusk, but no one here would dare say so. Its spiral gleams cold and pale, drawing gasps from the crowd. They believe it's divine, a gift from God to heal the sick and guard the pure. You smell the wax and sweat the desperation clinging to these souls like damp wool. The horn's a relic donated by a duke to atone for sins, likely a mistress or two. The bishop is robed, stiff with gold thread, calls it a miracle, claiming it wept holy oil when unveiled. You'd bet that oil was olive dabbed by a sly acolyte, but the pilgrims eat it up. A woman with a withered arm kneels, praying the horn's aura will mend her. A merchant fat with coin offers silver for a blessing, hoping to dodge the plague. The cathedral's a medieval GoFundMe raking in donations, while the horn sits useless as a broken quill. You notice its carvings, angels and vines etched to dazzle, hiding its whalebone truth. Whispers ripple. A child touched the horn last month and spoke in tongues. The priest nods sagely, but you catch their greedy glances. This is faith as theatre, the horn a prop in a divine con. The air hums with chants Latin weaving through the crowd's low moans. You feel the weight of their belief heavy as the stone above. A crone at the back hisses of curses how the horn blinds the unworthy. Her words chill the pilgrims who cross themselves, eyes darting. Superstition's a leash, and the church holds it tight. You wonder how many narwhals died for this fast, their tusks polished into sacred lies. The bishop raises his hands, voice booming of unicorns as God's sentinels. The crowd sways, some weeping, others clutching rosaries. You'd laugh, but the scene's too grim, a cathedral packed with hope pinned on a scam. It's a medieval influencer campaign, the horn trending among the devout. As you turn to leave, the incense stings your eyes, and the horn's shadow stretches sharp as a blade. Humanity's hunger for miracles is a wound bleeding coins and dreams. Like, share what's the strangest holy object you've heard of. You're on a creaking ship, 1490, slicing through Arctic waters, where ice floes glint like shattered mirrors. The air bites salt spray, crusting your beard as sailors curse and haul nets. They're hunting narwhals, their tusks destined to become unicorn horns in Europe's markets. The sea churns grey as iron, and a sailor points a narwhal, breaches its spiral tusk, piercing the mist. You hear its cry, a keening that haunts the crew. They call it a sea unicorn, half believing the myths they'll sell. The deck reeks of fish and sweat ropes groaning under the wind's lash. The captain, a grizzled Dane with frost in his eyes, knows the game. Each tusk fetches a fortune in Venice or London, enough to buy a manor. He's no fool narwhals aren't unicorns, but he spins tales of enchanted beasts to gullible traders. Tell 'em it's blessed, he growls, hacking a tusk free. Blood stains the deck red against the ice's glare. You wince, but the sailors laugh, dreaming of ale and women. This is the scam's route, where whalebone turns to gold, fueled by Europe's obsession with the divine. It's a medieval crypto hustle, high risk, high reward. The crew works fast, sawing tusks before the carcass sinks. One sailor whispers of curses, how narwhals are sea spirits, their horns vengeful. The others scoff, but their knives, slow eyes scanning the fog. Superstition's a stowaway even here. You feel the ship sway, the cold seeping into your bones. The captain plans to sell these tusks to a merchant in Bruges, who'll polish them into relics for kings and bishops. You imagine the chain from this bloody deck to a cathedral's altar, a lie spun tighter with each hand. As night falls, the aurora dances green and ghostly. The sailors mutter prayers, fearing the tusk's weight in more than gold. You smell the brine and blood, the Arctic's raw truth beneath the myth. This is humanity killing for profit, weaving stories to justify it. The narwhal's tusk cold in your hand is just bone, but it'll dazzle a king. Drop a comment. What's the weirdest thing you've seen sold as magic? You're in a cluttered workshop, 1505, where the air stinks of sulphur and singed dreams. The alchemist, a gaunt man with wild eyes, hunches over a bubbling crucible, his robes patched and scorched. Before him lies a unicorn horn narwhal tusk, though he's too obsessed to care, its spiral gleaming under a flickering lamp. He's convinced it holds the secret to immortality, or at least a potion to turn lead to gold. You watch him scrape shavings into a vial, muttering Latin like a man possessed. The room's a chaos of retorts and tomes, parchment curling in the damp. This is medieval science, half magic, half madness, chasing a whale's tooth to the edge of reason. His latest experiment's a disaster waiting to happen. He claims the horn's essence mixed with mercury and toad bile will unlock the cosmos. Last week, a similar mix exploded, singeing his beard and shattering a window. You smell the acrid residue like a burnt offering to folly. The horn's a scam bought from a smirking trader, but to him it's the philosopher's stone in bone form. He grinds it with a pestle, sweat beading on his brow, whispering of unicorns dancing in Eden. You'd laugh, but his fervour's unsettling like a coder chasing a bug that doesn't exist. This is a medieval pipe dream fueled by myth and desperation. The alchemist's neighbours call him mad, and they're not wrong. He spent a fortune on relics, bankrupting his family for this tusk. You notice his trembling hands, the feverish glint in his eyes, as he pours the powder into a bubbling pot. It hisses spitting green fumes that make you gag. This time he croaks, "I'll conquer death." The horn's supposed to glow if it's true, or so he read in a dusty grimoire. Spoiler, it won't. You feel the room's heat, the weight of his delusion. A shadow moves just a rat, but he flinches, muttering of curses. Superstition's his shadow, whispering that the horn might judge him. The pot boils over and he curses, dousing it with water. The horn sits unmoved, its spiral mocking his failure. You wonder how many alchemists died chasing this lie, their lives burned away like candle wax. The workshop's a tomb littered with broken vials and shattered hopes. He'll try again tomorrow, because that's humanity doubling down on shiny myths. It's a medieval startup crash with unicorn dust as the pitch. Drop a comment. What's the wildest experiment you've heard of? Picture a royal court 1530 where silk and ambition choke the air. You're a lady in waiting, your gown itching in the heat as the queen preens before a mirror. She's commissioned a unicorn horn narwhal tusk, but she'd stake her crown, it's enchanted to be carved into a pendant, a dazzling show of wealth. The tusk etched with roses and pearls hangs heavy around her neck, catching torchlight like a star. She twirls demanding gasps from courtiers who oblige their envy sharp as daggers. You smell the lavender oil on her skin, masking the hall's undercurrent of sweat and intrigue. This is medieval bling, a whale's tooth turned royal flex. The queen's no fool, but vanity's her blind spot. She believes the horn boosts her allure, maybe even her fertility after 3 stillbirths. The jeweller, a sly fox with a velvet cap, swore it's a charm against misfortune. Cost her a fortune enough to arm a fleet, but she's all in flaunting it like a medieval influencer dropping a luxury haul. You notice the pendant's weight dragging her posture, yet she smiles, radiant in her delusion. Courtiers whisper of its powers, one claims it cured her headaches. Another says it glows at midnight. Lies, but they keep the queen happy, and happy queens don't behead. The irony's thick, this unicorn relic hauled from Arctic seas is just bone polish to scam royalty. You'd smirk, but one wrong look could land you scrubbing pots. The court's a stage, and the horn's the star propped up by flattery and fear. A maid whispers of curses how a rival queen wore a horn and lost her throne. The story's nonsense, but it sends a chill through the silk-clad crowd. You feel the hall's warmth, torchlight dancing on the pendant's curves, the queen adjusts its eyes gleaming with pride. It's a medieval status symbol as empty as a viral post with no substance. As she parades, you catch the jeweller's smirk counting his coins in the shadows. The horn's a lie, but its shine blinds them all. Humanity's a sucker for glitter then and now. Like Cher, what's the priciest status item you've seen? You're slinking through a castle's shadows, 1495, where moonlight spills like spilled wine across stone floors. The air's sharp with wax and fear, your heart hammering, as you a thief eye a unicorn horn on a velvet pedestal. The tusk narwhal, though the lord who owns it dreams of unicorns, gleams its spirals carved with saints worth more than your life. You've heard it detect poison, cures plagues, but you're here for coin, not magic. The hall's silent, save for guards' distant boots and your own ragged breath. One wrong step and it's the noose. This is medieval high-stakes, a heist with a mythical prize. The horn's guarded like a king's heir, locked in a chapel where candles burn low. You've bribed a servant for the key, but the lock's stiff grating like a bone saw. You smell the chapel's mildew mingled with incense and feel the tusk's cold pull. It's a scam-sure whalebone sold by some dockside hustler, but its value's real enough to buy freedom from this rat-hole life. You ease the lock open, wincing at the click. The horn's heavier than it looks, its weight dragging your arm like guilt. You wrap it in sackcloth pulse racing as a guard coughs nearby. Whispers haunt you, village tales of curses steal a horn, and the unicorn's wrath hunts you. A drunk in the tavern swore a thief who took one woke to hoofprints in his yard, then vanished. Nonsense, you tell yourself, but the dark plays tricks, and the tusk feels alive, icy against your skin. You dodge a patrol, slipping into an alcove where shadows cling like damp cloaks. The castle's a maze, each turn a gamble. You're no hero, just a man with debts and a knife. This horn's your ticket out a medieval lottery win if you don't get caught. A floorboard creaks and you freeze the tusk's outline bulging under your cloak. The curse tales gnaw what if it's true. Your hand brushes the horn and for a heartbeat you swear it hums. Just nerves, but sweat stings your eyes. You make it to the outer wall, the night air cold as a blade. The horn's a lie, but its power, real or not, drives men to madness. You're halfway over the wall when a dog barks and torchlight flares. Humanity's a fool for shiny traps, and you're no exception. Like, share what's the riskiest thing you've chased? You're in a candlelit study, 1510, surrounded by dusty tomes and the ghost of reason. The scholar, a wiry man with ink-stained hands, pores over a unicorn horn on his desk. Narwhal tusk, though the world calls it divine. Its spiral catches the light, mocking his quest for truth. He's read Pliny, Aristotle, and grimoires chasing the horn's secrets, but his notes scream fraud, just bone no magic. You smell parchment and wax the air heavy with his defiance. This is medieval skepticism, a lone voice against a tide of faith and greed. He's no fool, this scholar. He's dissected fish-boiled bones and found no trace of unicorns, only tales spun by merchants. The horn's a relic bought by his patron to cure a cough, but it's as useless as a broken quill. He writes, a whale's tooth, not a saint's gift, risking scorn or worse. The church loves its relics. Lords love their myths. Calling the horn a lie is like debunking a viral hoax in a cathedral. You notice his trembling quill, the candles flicker, casting shadows like accusing fingers. Truth's a dangerous guest in this age. Dangerous. Villagers whisper of curses, doubt the horn, and misfortune follows. A priest warned him last week, eyes cold, that God guards his wonders. The scholar scoffs, but his door's bolted, and he jumps at creaks. You feel the room's chill, the weight of his solitude. He tests the tusk, scraping it into water, no fizz, no glow. Just bone, he mutters, yet the world clings to its shine. His patron wants miracles. The scholar offers facts, a medieval whistleblower with no audience. The horn sits indifferent, its myth stronger than his reason. As dawn creeps through the window, he hides his notes, fearing spies. The horn's a scam, but its grip on hearts is iron. Humanity's addicted to belief then and now. Drop a comment. What's a myth you've seen debunked, but people still swear by? You're in a grand hall, 1460, where treachery hangs thicker than the tapestries. The air's sharp with roast boar and dread courtiers' laughter masking their side eyes. The lord, a barrel-chested man with a scar across his brow, clutches a unicorn horn narwhal tusk, though he'd bet his lands it's holy. Its spiral glints under chandeliers, a supposed shield against poison. Tonight's a test. A servant dips the tusk into a silver goblet, the court holding its breath for the fizz that proves venom's present. You watch sweat beading as nothing happens. The lord's face darkens and a taster sips trembling. This is medieval paranoia, a reality show where failure means death. The horn's a status symbol bought for a fortune to guard against assassins. Legends swear it bubbles in tainted wine, a divine alarm. The lord's been jumpy since his rival died choking at a feast. You smell the wine's tang mixed with wax and fear as the taster stands alive for now. The court exhales, but the lord's not convinced. He orders another test, this time with a different cup. The horn dips again, silent as stone. You'd laugh at the scam, a whale's tooth peddled by a sly merchant, but the lord's glare could flay skin. The tusks carved with crosses, pretty but useless, a medieval placebo for a world of daggers. A courtier, bold or stupid, suggests the horn's fake. Gasps ripple. The lord's hand twitches toward his sword, the taster pale as ash drinks again. Minutes crawl and he's fine, but the Lord's rage grows. It worked for the French king, he roars, though you doubt that tale's true. The horn's a lie, but calling it out's like debunking a viral ad in a snake pit. You notice the servants shaking hands, the goblets gleam. Last month a rigged test fizzed likely a merchant's trick with ground coral and a rival was hanged. Now the horn's failure sparks panic, not relief. The court's a tinderbox and truth's the spark. Whispers of curses creep in, how a false horn angers God. A lady crosses herself, her pearls clicking. You feel the halls chill despite the fire's roar. The tusk sits, mocking their faith, a relic of greed, not divinity. The Lord drinks, but his eyes dart, seeing poison in every shadow. Humanity's a sucker for shiny fixes then and now. Like share what's the dumbest safety gadget you've seen hyped. You're in a fog-drenched hamlet 1480, where moonlight barely pierces the gloom. The air's sour with peat and panic villagers clustered around a crumbling church. A unicorn horn narwhal tusk peddled as sacred sites in the vestry a lord's gift to ward off plague. Last night a peasant boy goaded by a dare touched it. Now he's fevered coughing blood and the village buzzes with dread. They say the horn's cursed, that unicorns punish the unworthy. You hear their whispers shrill as wind through bare branches as they cross themselves. This is medieval fear, a ghost story gone viral in a world of mud and faith. The church's stones weep damp candles spitting in the draught. The horn rests on a wooden stand, its spiral cold and pale like a bone from some forgotten sea. The boy's mother wails, claiming the tusk glowed when he touched it. A lie, probably, but terror makes poets of peasants. You smell their unwashed fear mingled with tallow and mould. The priest, a gaunt man with greedy eyes, fans the flames preaching that only the pure can approach the relic. God's wrath, he intones, as if ergot in the rye didn't spark the boy's fit. You'd call it nonsense, but the crowd's a mob ready to burn a witch or a skeptic. Tales spiral, a woman who mocked a horn went blind. A thief who stole one vanished hoofprints by his door. The boy's fever's likely from bad bread, but the village sees hooves in every shadow. You feel the fog's clammy grip, the horn's silent menace. It's a scam, a whale's tooth dressed in myth, yet its curse rules them tighter than any lord's whip. A crone spits, the beast sees all. You step back the mud, sucking at your boots, and wonder how a lie became their god. Humanity's chained to stories, especially the scary ones. Drop a comment. What's a local legend that spooked you as a kid? You're in a bustling Bruges market, 1470, where the air hums with shouts and the tang of fish. Stalls overflow with silks, spices and lies, merchants vying for every coin. Two traders, hawk-eyed and sharp-tongued, stand toe-to-toe, each clutching a unicorn horn narwhal tusks peddled as divine relics. One a Venetian with a velvet doublet boasts his horn cured a duke's plague. The other a local with a scarred lip counters that his fizzes in poisoned wine. Their voices clash like swords, drawing a crowd of gawking burghers. You smell their sweat and ambition thick as the canal's murk. This is medieval capitalism, a shark tank with mythical bait. The Venetian's tusk, polished to a pearly sheen, glints under the sun. He claims it's from a unicorn slain in a holy forest pure drivel, but the crowd laps it up. The Fleming, not to be outdone, waves his tusk etched with crosses, swearing it glowed during mass. You'd bet both were bought cheap from Arctic sailors, whale bones turned to gold by fast talk. They undercut each other's prices, slashing from a castle's worth to a mere manor. A noble hesitates purse in hand as the merchant's insults fly, his horn's a fishbone, yours is driftwood. It's a medieval rap battle, each verse dripping with greed. The crowd loves the chaos, betting on who'll crack first. You notice a boy pickpocketing in the fray, proof this market's a jungle. The tusks are fakes, but their allures real, promising power over death. Whispers of curses swirl a rival trader who sold a dud horn drowned last month. The merchants ignore it, too busy shouting. You feel the cobblestones grit, the sun's heat on your neck. The Venetian drops his price again, desperate to win. The Fleming smirks, tossing in a free vial of horn shavings. It's a race to the bottom, flooding Bruges with lies. Humanity's a mark, always chasing shiny scams. Like share what's the fiercest sales pitch you've seen. You're in a crumbling manor 1490 where dust motes dance in slanted light. The noble, once a lord of swagger and silk, sits hunched, his doublet threadbare. Before him on a scarred table lies a unicorn horn narwhal tusk bought to secure his legacy. Its spiral, once a beacon of hope, now mocks him cold as the creditors knocking at his gate. He paid a fortune for it, draining his coffers to fend off poison and plague. Now his lands are mortgaged, his servants gone, his name a jest in court. You smell the mildew, hear the manor's creaks. This is medieval ruin, a riches to rags tale scripted by a whale's tooth. He believed the horn's myths, dip it in wine, banish venom, grind it, cure fevers. A merchant all smiles and lies swore it'd make him untouchable. He flaunted it at feasts, a medieval flex gone wrong. The horn fizzed once, rigged no doubt, but failed when his son fell ill coughing to death. You see the noble's hollow eyes, his fingers tracing the tusk's carvings, as if answers lie in its grooves. The manor's bare tapestries pawned the hearth cold. Creditors circle like vultures, and whispers of curses haunt him. A horn scams the greedy. He scoffs, but doubt gnaws sharp as the wind through broken shutters. The village calls him cursed, claiming the horn drained his luck. You'd blame bad deals and worse faith, but superstition's a noose here. The tusk's a fraud, yet it broke him a lie heavier than stone. You feel the rooms chill, the weight of his fall. He mutters of selling the horn, but who'd buy a cursed relic? Humanity's a gambler betting all on shiny myths. Drop a comment, what's a purchase that cost you more than money? You're in a gilded cathedral, 1455, where golden altars gleam under vaulted stone. The air's thick with frankincense and greed, pilgrims' murmurs echoing like a restless tide. A unicorn horn narwhal tusk peddled as a holy relic sits enshrined in a silver reliquary, its spiral catching candlelight like a divine wink. The bishop draped in velvet blesses it, claiming it wards off demons and heals the soul. Pilgrims weary and wide-eyed offer coins for a glimpse, their donations piling high. You smell their desperation mixed with wax and stone damp as the church turns whalebone into profit. This is medieval crowdfunding with salvation as the pitch. The horn's a lord's gift meant to buy favour with God, or the bishop's favour with the Lord. The clergy swears it's authentic, citing tales of unicorns kneeling to saints. You'd bet it's from a sailor's hall polished to scam the faithful, but the bishop's sermon drowns doubt. A gift from Eden he intones as a choir hums. A cripple shuffles forward, praying for healing. A merchant seeks luck. The horn does nothing, but the church's coffers swell a medieval Ponzi scheme dressed in piety. You notice the reliquary's filigree crafted to dazzle, hiding the tusk's mundane truth. Whispers of curses lurk, though. A monk who questioned the horn's power fell ill, or so the sexton claims. The pilgrims cross themselves, fear tightening their faces. You feel the cathedral's chill, the weight of their belief. The bishop's eyes glint, counting silver as he blesses the crowd. He knows the game relics sell hope, and hope sells indulgences. The horn's a lie, but its shine binds the flock tighter than scripture. The widow drops her last coin, her hands trembling. You'd call it theft, but this is faith's business, and business is booming. Humanity's a mark for holy hype then and now. Like Cher, what's the shadiest charity you've seen? You're on a storm-lashed deck, 1485, where Arctic waves roar like a beast unchained. The ship groans salt spray, stinging your face as sailors grizzled and windburnt haul a net heavy with narwhal tusks. One a weathered Dane with a voice like gravel spins tales of sea unicorns to a young deckhand, his words half drowned by thunder. The tusks, destined to be unicorn horns in Europe's courts, gleam wetly, their spirals sharp as myths. He claims they're cursed, plucked from creatures that guard the ocean's heart. You smell blood and brine the air alive with the sea's raw pulse. This is medieval storytelling weaving lies to fuel a scam. The sailor's yarn grows wild, narwhals dance under the aurora, their horns piercing krakens. He says one sang to him a wail that chilled his soul. The deckhand eyes wide, grips his knife tighter. You'd laugh. The tusks are whale teeth bound for merchants who'll sell them as relics, but the storm's howl lends the tail weight. The sailor's no fool. His stories inflate the tusk's value, ensuring a fat cut when they reach port. It's a medieval marketing campaign spun on waves and dread. You feel the deck's pitch, the cold biting your bones. A tusk slips, nearly spearing a sailor, and he curses, muttering of vengeance from the deep. Superstition's a stowaway even among these brutes. The Dane grins, knowing his tales will echo in taverns, driving up prices. You see a narwhal breach its tusk, a fleeting spear in the gloom. The crew falls silent, awed, or afraid. The tusks will dazzle kings, but here they're just cargo bloodied and real. Humanity's a sucker for epic tales then and now. Drop a comment. What's the wildest story you've heard from a traveller? You're in a plague-ravaged town, 1480, where death's stench clogs the air. The street's a graveyard, bodies slumped in doorways, flies buzzing like a grim choir. In a dim apothecary shop, a desperate crowd watches a healer grind a unicorn horn narwhal tusk sold as a miracle to cure the Black Death. Its spiral glints pale as bone as he scrapes dust into a foul-smelling paste. He swears it'll purge the pestilence, his voice cracking with false hope. You hear fevered groans from the sick, their eyes hollow, clutching rosaries. This is medieval desperation, a last-ditch scam dressed as salvation. The healer's no saint, just a chancer with a mortar and lies. He bought the tusk cheap knowing it's whalebone, but the plague's a goldmine for grifters. One dose he croaks and God's mercy flows. The paste mixed with mouldy herbs smells like a crypt's breath. A woman, her face pocked with sores, swallows it gagging. You smell the shops damp, the reek of unwashed fear. The crowd's desperate, offering coins or heirlooms for a pinch of dust. The horn's a fraud, but in this hell it's a lifeline. A medieval snake oil ad gone viral. Nothing happens. The woman coughs blood, flecking her lips, and the crowd shifts uneasy. The healer babbles of faith, but a man shouts, "It's cursed!" Whispers spread the horn, punishes doubters, its unicorn spirit vengeful. You'd blame bad water or fleas, but superstition's a noose here. The tusk sits mocking their prayers as another patient collapses, skin blackening. You feel the room's clammy dread candle spitting in the gloom. The healer pockets his coins, eyes darting to the door. Last week a rival's shop burned after a failed cure mob justice or a curse. The crowd's turning and he knows it. The horn's a lie, but its failure cuts deeper than death. These people bet their lives on a myth and lost. Humanity's a gambler chasing glitter in the dark. Like share what's a cure you've seen hyped that flopped hard. You're in a smoky workshop, 1465, where wood smoke and sweat mingle in the air. The artisan, a stooped man with calloused hands, carves a unicorn horn narwhal tusk, though he believes it's divine, into a relic for a bishop. His chisel scrapes etching vines and angels, the spiral glowing under lamplight. He's proud, thinking his work honours God, unaware it's bound for a cathedral scam. You hear the fires crackle, the rhythm of his tools steady as a prayer. This is medieval craft beauty forged in ignorance, propping up a lie. He's no con man, just a carver with a family to feed. The tusk came from a merchant who swore it's a unicorn's blessed by saints. The artisan nods, tracing its curves, dreaming of his name in church records. His workshop's small, cluttered with wood shavings and half-finished crosses. You smell the pine and wax, feel the bench's splinters. He carves with care, believing the horn will heal pilgrims. It's a medieval Etsy project, heartfelt but doomed to deceive. The bishop's paying well enough to buy bread for months, so he doesn't question. A neighbour whispers of curses, a carver who worked a horn went blind. The artisan shrugs, but his chisel slows eyes flicking to the tusk. You notice its cold sheen, like a sea's secret. He's innocent, yet his art fuels a fraud, turning whalebone into a relic for the gullible. The merchant's long gone counting coins, while this man's hands shape a myth. You feel the room's warmth, the weight of his trust. The tusk's done a masterpiece, but it's a lie destined to dupe. Humanity's a craftsman building beauty on shaky truths. Drop a comment. What's a project you poured heart into, only to learn it served a scam? You're in a lavish court, 1500, where silk gowns rustle, and ambition crackles like the fire in the hearth. The air's heavy with perfume and posturing courtiers circling a unicorn horn narwhal tusk. Though they'd stake their titles, it's divine displayed on a gilded stand. Its spiral gleams a prop in a heated debate over its powers. One lord red-faced swears it saved his wife from poison. A lady counters it's just bone, her voice sharp as her fan. The king lounging on his throne eggs them on amused. You smell the wax and wine, feel the tension coiling. This is medieval Twitter, a viral thread of hot takes on a myth. The horn's a court darling bought to dazzle and deter assassins. The pro-horn faction cites fizzing wine and cured fever's tales spun by merchants and priests. The skeptics, emboldened by a scholar's pamphlet, call it a sea creature's tooth risking the king's frown. Evidence narwhal carcasses washing up in Denmark piles up, but faith dies hard. You notice the tusk's carvings, vines and crosses, pretty lies etched deep. A courtier desperate for favour claims it glowed last night. Another scoffs, likening it to a mermaid's comb. The room buzzes arguments, drowning in claret and ego. It's a farce, a medieval reality show with no winner. Whispers of curses spice the fray, a lord who mocked the horn lost his lands. The believers clutch rosaries, while skeptics roll their eyes, but all play the game. Status hinges on the king's mood. You feel the hearth's heat, the weight of their denial. The tusk's a fraud, yet it holds court, a shiny lie no one can quit. A page trips, nearly toppling it, and gasps ripple. The king laughs, but his hand grazes his dagger. Truth's a guest no one invited, and the Horn's myth is their real lord. Humanity's a circus juggling facts and fables for clout. Like share what's a debate you've seen spiral into nonsense. You're in a quiet port town 1550, where the unicorn horn trade fades like mist off the sea. The air's briny gulls screeching over docks where narwhal tusks once fueled fortunes. A dusty shop, its shelves sparse, holds a single horn whale bone no longer divine gathering cobwebs. The merchant old and sour mutters of better days when kings paid castles for such relics. Now scholars' books call them frauds, and courts prefer new fads, clocks, not curses. You smell the seaweed and rot, feel the era's shift. This is medieval twilight, a myth's end in a world waking up. The horn's spiral, once a beacon of hope, looks dull, its carvings worn. It promised poison's defeat, plague's cure, but failed too often, sick princes died, wine stayed deadly. You hear the harbours creak, the ghost of sailors' tales about sea unicorns. Those stories drove the scam, turning tusks into treasures. Now ships bring spices, not myths, and apothecaries sell herbs, not dust. The merchant recalls a bishop's blessing, a queen's pendant, but the magic's gone like a viral trend gone stale. A few peasants still whisper of curses, but their fears faded, outshone by new wonders. Yet the Horn's legacy lingers, a reminder of humanity's hunger for the impossible. It duped lords, fueled feuds, filled graves, all for a lie spun from whalebone. You feel the shops chill, the weight of centuries chasing glitter. The merchant might sell this tusk for scrap or keep it a relic of his own lost faith. The world moves on, but myths don't die. They morph, waiting for new marks. Humanity's a dreamer always chasing the next shiny lie. Like share what's a faded fad you've seen people cling to. You're in Strasbourg summer 1518, where the air's thick with heat and hunger. Cobblestones bake under your feet, the market square buzzing with weary vendors and gaunt townsfolk. Frau Trophea, a woman with tired eyes and a patched dress, steps into the open, her body twitching. She sways, then dances jerky, relentless steps like a puppet on frayed strings. You hear her shoes slap stone, her breath ragged as neighbours gawk, some laughing, others crossing themselves. This isn't a festival. It's something wrong, a spark of madness in a famine-scorched town. The air smells of sweat and rye dust, ominous as a storm's edge. No one knows why she dances. Ergot in the bread, poisoning her mind, a demon as the priest mutters. Her limbs flail, eyes distant, as if pulled by an unseen hand. You feel the crowd's unease, their murmurs rising like flies. Frau Trophea doesn't stop, not for water, not for pleas. Hours pass, and her steps grow frantic, a rhythm of dread. The square's a stage, and she's the unwilling star of a medieval TikTok challenge gone fatal. A child tugs his mother's skirt, asking if God's angry. You'd blame bad grain, but this feels otherworldly, a glitch in the human machine. The sun dips, painting the cathedral's spire blood red. Frau Trophea's still dancing, her face a mask of strain. A man whispers of St. Vitus, patron of dancers cursing sinners. You smell the crowd's fear, sharp as vinegar. This is how it starts, a single woman, a spark that'll burn Strasbourg to its bones. Humanity's fragile one bad loaf or bad idea from chaos. Like share what's the weirdest thing you've seen catch on like wildfire. You're back in Strasbourg's square, 1518 days after Frau Trophea's dance began. The air's a furnace dust choking your throat as dozens now dance their bodies whirling in a manic blur. Men, women, young and old, they stomp and spin, faces twisted with exhaustion or eerie blankness. The cobblestones thrum a drumbeat of doom as onlookers shift from jeers to terror. You hear gasps, prayers, the scuff of shoes worn to rags. The market's a maelstrom, a viral dance challenge spiralling into a nightmare. The stench of sweat and panic clings like damp wool. Some say it's got a mould in the rye-twisting mines. Others scream of demons. The dancers don't stop, not for thirst or blisters. A baker red-faced collapses, then rises, driven by some unseen whip. You feel the crowd's dread, thick as the heat. A woman's arm jerks, joining the fray, her scream lost in the rhythm. It's a medieval flash mob, but the vibe's all wrong, less festival, more funeral. The cathedral looms its bells, silent as if gods turned away. A boy whispers of St. Vitus, cursing the town. You'd scoff, but the dancer's eyes vacant, yet wild, chill you. The square's a whirl of dust and bodies, some laughing, others weeping, all trapped in motion. Humanity's a tinderbox, one spark from order to chaos. Like share what's a craze you've seen sweep people up. You're in Strasbourg's Cathedral Square 1518, where the dancing plague rages under a sky bruised with clouds. The air reeks of incense and terror, the dancers' relentless steps echoing like a heartbeat gone mad. Priests in black robes chant Latin, their voices sharp as thorns, declaring the dancers cursed by St. Vitus, patron of spasms. You see dozens whirling their bodies, jerking, some frothing others, weeping bloodied tears. The cathedral spire looms a grim judge as a priest swings a censer, smoke curling like ghosts. This is medieval exorcism, a holy firewall against a glitch no one understands. The crowd's frozen, clutching crosses as a dancer. A girl barely 16 collapses, then rises her feet, pounding again. The head priest gaunt and wild-eyed screams of demons urging repentance. He tried splashing holy water. It did nothing but wet their rags. Now he's planning a mass exorcism, blaming sin for the town's unravelling. You smell the crowd's panic, sour as old milk, and hear their sobs. It's a medieval horror flick with St. Vitus as the villain. Ergot in the Rye might explain it, but try telling that to a priest smelling brimstone. The dancer's shrieks cut through the chants, a sound to haunt your bones. A woman whispers that only prayer can break the curse, but her eyes dart, fearing she'll dance next. The priest's failure stinks worse than the plague pits outside town. Humanity's a puppet jerked by fear and faith gone haywire. Like Cher, what's a time you've seen panic pin the blame on the wrong thing? You're in a Strasbourg tavern, 1518, now a makeshift hospital, where the dancing plague turns men into marionettes. The air's rank with sweat and herbs, dancers staggering on a straw-strewn floor, their steps a grim rhythm. Physicians in long coats and smug frowns declare the cure more dancing. They've built a wooden stage, hired drummers to guide the frenzy, believing it'll purge the sickness. You hear the thud of feet, the wail of a flute as a dancer, a blacksmith face grey, collapses only to rise again. This is medieval medicine, a bad idea dressed as genius, like a viral life hack gone lethal. The doctors blame hot blood or poisoned rye, but their fix is lunacy. One dancer's feet bleed, another's arm snaps, yet the drums pound on. You smell the straw's mould, the dancer's desperation. A physician wiping sweat insists the rhythm will expel the humour. It's a medieval Zumba class, except people die. The crowd outside jeers some betting on who'll drop next. Ergot's the likely culprit, twisting minds, but these quacks think tempo's the key. A woman's scream pierces the din as she falls, her legs still twitching. The doctors nod, calling it progress. The tavern's a sweatbox candles guttering in the chaos. The dancer's eyes blank, yet wild scream of a trap no one sees. Humanity's a lab rat tested by its own dumb cures. Like Cher, what's the worst fix you've seen for a problem you're in? Strasbourg's Market Square 1518, where the dancing plague turns humans into wrecks. The air's thick with dust and despair, the cobblestones slick with blood and sweat. Dancers now numbering dozens whirl in a grotesque ballet, their bodies breaking under the strain. The baker's knees buckle, his shins snapping with a crack like dry wood. You hear his scream sharp as shattered glass, yet his feet keep moving, driven by some unseen whip. The crowd gasps, some retching others, praying as the cathedral's shadow looms. This is a medieval horror show, a viral challenge where the prize is death. The dancer's limbs twist unnatural as if possessed. A woman's arm dangles bone, jutting through skin, but she spins on eyes vacant. Ergot's poison or mass hysteria nobody knows, but the result's the same, bodies crumbling like rotten timber. You smell the iron tang of blood, the sour fear of onlookers. The priest's chants falter, their St. Vitus curse nonsense no match for this carnage. A drum meant to cure them thumps dully, mocking the chaos. It's a zombie rave, bodies falling yet dancing, a glitch in the human code no one can debug. A child wails as his father collapses, heart bursting mid-step. The crowd's frozen, torn between fleeing and staring. Humanity's a fragile machine, one bad spark from ruin. Like Cher, what's a moment you've seen someone push past their breaking point? You're in Strasbourg, 1518, where night cloaks a city gripped by dread. The dancing plague has spread, and the town's gates are barred as if wood could stop this madness. The air's heavy with smoke and silence, save for the distant thud of dancers' feet echoing like a dying pulse. You stand in a deserted street, shutters slammed the cathedral's spire, a black claw against the stars. Townsfolk huddle indoors, whispering of curses, fearing the dance will claim them next. The stench of fear and rotting grain lingers, a reminder of the plague's grip. This is medieval lockdown, a town haunted by its own rhythm. The dancers, some now dead, others staggering, are corralled in a guild hall, their steps a grim metronome. You hear muffled cries through bolted doors, a sound to curdle blood. The council desperate bands music, thinking it fuels the frenzy ironic, since they hired drummers days ago. A woman whispers through a crack that her son's still dancing his feet raw stumps. Ergot or demons, no one cares anymore. They just want it to stop. It's a medieval sci-fi horror, a town trapped in a loop no one can break. You feel the chill of empty streets, the weight of a city holding its breath. Humanity's a spark in a storm snuffed by panic. Like Cher, what's a time fear locked down your world. You're in a dim Strasbourg tavern, late summer, 1518, where the dancing plague's chaos lingers like a bad dream. The air's stale with ale and grief, the floor scarred from dancers' frenzied steps. A handful of survivors huddle their eyes, haunted skin clammy as if still touched by madness. One, a weaver with trembling hands, whispers of an unseen force that drove her feet like a ghost pulling strings. You hear the creak of benches, the low hum of their voices, each word heavy with dread. This is medieval trauma, a support group for a glitch no one explains. She speaks of dancing till her ribs ached, her mind blank yet screaming. Another, a cobbler, says he saw shadows urging him on, though he blames the rye bread now. Ergot's likely poisoning their thoughts, but they swear it felt alive, a demon's grip. You smell their fear, sour as old sweat, and see their scars, blistered, feet-twisted joints. The town calls them cursed, shunning their tales like a viral post gone toxic. The cathedral's bells toll a reminder of failed exorcisms. These survivors aren't heroes, just wreckage piecing together a nightmare. A woman mutters of hearing music no one played, a rhythm in her bones. You feel the tavern's chill, the weight of their fractured minds. Humanity's a fragile thread snapped by a spark no one saw coming. Like Cher, what's a moment you felt something bigger than you pulling the strings? You're in Strasbourg's empty square, August 1518, where the dancing plague fades like a fever breaking. The air's heavy with ash and silence, cobblestones scuffed raw by weeks of manic steps. The dancers, once dozens, are gone, some dead, others locked away, their rhythms stilled. The cathedral looms its spire, a mute witness to a town scarred by chaos. You hear distant sobs, the creak of shutters, as folk peek out, fearing the dancers' return. The stench of burnt herbs meant to cleanse the air lingers. This is medieval aftermath, a town waking from a nightmare it can't name. No one knows why it stopped. The priest's prayers, the doctor's drums all failed, yet the dancing slowed bodies dropping from exhaustion or death. Ergot's poison may have faded or hysteria burned out, but the town whispers of miracles or curses lifting. You see a bloodied shoe abandoned, a relic of the frenzy. The council bands talk of it, fearing contagion of mind or soul. It's a medieval cover-up, sweeping madness under the rug. The square's empty, but fear hums a ghost of rhythm in the silence. You feel the weight of a town, broken its people, clinging to normalcy. Humanity's a spark flickering through chaos, always one step from unravelling. Like Cher, what's a crisis you've seen fade, leaving only questions. You're in a plague-ravaged field, 1348, where the air reeks of rot and despair. A lone flagellant, gaunt and hollow-eyed, stands under a sky heavy with ash. He grips a spiked whip, its leather studded with iron, and lashes his back. The crack echoes blood, spraying like red rain, his groan, a prayer to a silent god. You smell the iron tang, see his flesh tear each strike a plea to end the Black Death. This is medieval penance, a bloody performance art to appease a wrathful deity. His robes, once white, are crimson, clinging to raw wounds. He believes his pain will stop the plague, that his blood buys mercy. The whip's spikes glint, tearing deeper with each swing. You hear the crowd's gasps, distant dogs barking as he chants, a hymn voice cracking. It's a medieval flash mob, one man's agony sparking a movement. The plague's taken half the village, swollen corpses, blackened flesh, but he thinks this ritual's the fix. You'd call it madness, but faith's a fever here, hotter than the pestilence. A woman clutches her rosary, whispering of salvation. The flagellant stumbles, but his whip doesn't. Each lash is a scream against death, a grim tick-tock challenge no one asked for. You feel the fields chill, the weight of a world unravelling. Humanity's a martyr bleeding for answers it'll never get. Like share what's a desperate act you've seen to fix the unfixable. You're in a muddy village 1349 where the Black Death's shadow chokes the air. A band of flagellants, bloodied and chanting, shuffles through their whips, cracking like thunder. Villagers line the path, torn between awe and horror, their faces pale as the plague's toll. You see a flagellant's back, a mess of torn flesh, his spiked lash dripping red. The crowd murmurs, some kneeling, others recoiling, believing these men are saints or lunatics. The air smells of blood and damp earth hymns wailing like wolves. This is medieval theatre faith and pain in a grim dance. They whip themselves to save the village, believing God demands blood for mercy. A woman offers bread her hands, shaking, seeing them as holy. A man spits, calling it madness, but he's hushed doubts dangerous here. You hear the whip's rhythm, the flagellant's groans blending with Latin chants. It's a medieval performance piece, raw and unhinged, like a viral stunt gone bloody. The plague's taken neighbours' livestock hope, and these men think their scars are the cure. You feel the mud's chill, the crowd's fevered gaze. A child stares, clutching a cross as a flagellant collapses, whip falling. The village holds its breath, torn between worship and fear. Humanity's a tightrope, balancing on pain and prayer. Like share what's a time you've seen awe and terror clash. You're trudging through a ravaged countryside 1349, where the Black Death stench clings like damp rot. A band of flagellants marches, their spiked whips cracking blood soaking their tattered robes. They vowed 33 1-2 days of this Christ's years on earth, chanting hymns that wail like wolves under a leaden sky. Each step churns mud, each lash tears flesh their groans a grim rhythm. You hear the thud of bare feet, see crimson trails snaking through dirt. The air's thick with plague and piety, a medieval marathon of pain to beg God's mercy. Villages they pass offer bread awed by their sacrifice, though some bolt their doors fearing madness. The flagellants' eyes burn half-starved, believing their blood halts the pestilence. You smell their wounds sour and raw and feel the grounds chill. Their leader, a bearded zealot, roars of Judgment Day as whip a sceptre of suffering. It's a medieval protest march, raw and bloody, like a viral stunt no one dares stop. The plague's corpses litter fields, but these men march on their faith, a fever fiercer than death. A hymn falters as one collapses, whip falling, yet the march continues relentless as the plague. Humanity's a pilgrim bleeding for a glimpse of hope. Like share what's a cause, you've seen people suffer for right or wrong. You're in a torchlit church council 1350 where bishops in stiff robes hiss like snakes. The air's heavy with wax and intrigue, the Black Death's shadow fueling their fear. Flagellants, bloodied zealots, whipping themselves to appease God, have grown too bold, drawing crowds and coin. The church declares them heretics, banning their bloody marches. You hear parchment rustle, see a bishop's ringed hand slam a table, his voice damning their unholy rites. The room smells of ink and dread torches casting shadows like judgmental ghosts. This is medieval power play, a crackdown on faith gone rogue. The flagellants' hymns, once revered, now spark panic among clergy. They fear rebellion, not salvation, as peasants flock to these blood-soaked saints. A decree's drafted banning whips and processions threatening excommunication. You feel the council's heat, the weight of their control slipping. Outside, flagellants defy the ban, their lashes echoing like a taunt. It's a medieval cancel culture, the church stomping out a viral movement. A priest whispers of a flagellant leader, burned last week heresy's price. The bishops nod their crosses, gleaming blind to the plague's real toll. A scribe trembles, ink smudging as he records the ban. The flagellant's defiance hums a bloody pulse against dogma. Humanity's a rebel, torn between control and chaos. Like share what's a time you've seen authority crush a movement, you're in a plague-scarred village 1350 where the air's thick with death and defiance. Flagellants march, their spiked whips tearing flesh blood, soaking the mud. Among them women, widows, mothers, outcasts join the line, defying norms that bind them to hearths. Their gowns torn and crimson flap as they lash themselves, chanting hymns that cut the fog. You hear the crack of whips, their defiant cries rising above men's groans. The Black Death's taken their kin, and they wield pain like a blade against despair. This is medieval rebellion, a bloody sisterhood under a merciless sky. Men sneer, calling it unseemly. Priest curse, labelling them heretics. But these women eyes blazing whip harder, believing their blood pleads for mercy. A widow, her face gaunt, swings her spiked lash, each strike a scream for her lost sons. You smell the iron tang of blood, feel the grounds chill. Villagers watch some awed others spitting women aren't meant to bleed for God. It's a medieval feminist flash mob raw and unapologetic, defying a world that buries them in silence. Their hymns weave through